Hey everyone, it's Myriam, and for this week's video I thought I would show you how I paint Caucasian skin tones in gouache. I won't call this a tutorial just because I still consider myself a beginner when it comes to gouache, and so I don't think my way is necessarily the best way, or I'm just learning, and so I thought I would show you my process and we can talk about it together, and I'll learn what I'll explain what I do to you, and you can maybe gather a few bits of knowledge from what I'm doing. I don't know. So I thought it would be a sharing experience that could be interesting for both of us. So I start off by doing a base colour, and here I usually do a base colour for Caucasian skin tones. I tend to do it more on the orange side than on the pink side. Although for these ones, because I was still experimenting and I didn't quite know what I was doing yet, I did go on the pink side, which I kind of amend a little bit by the end of the video. This is kind of a process for me in this video because this first foot, for example, for me was too pink. It was too baby coloured, if that makes sense. And so I wasn't very happy with that first foot that I did. And so you'll see the painting kind of evolving, my painting technique evolving as I go through the whole page and paint different feet. I was still happy with that first try just because I'd never painted feet before, and it was only my third or second try doing skin tones in gouache. But basically my process was this. I started off by doing a skin tone base, and in that base there was a lot of white, quite a lot of red, and a lot of ochre. And then I added some pinkish reddish tones to the skin, just because that's what makes it look more translucent in my opinion. And feet tend to be translucent a bit like hands. They have a thinner skin that looks a bit more translucent. You can see the veins a lot more and things like that. So I do this first base layer, which is neither too dark nor too light. It's not as light as my highlights, obviously, because I still want to be able to go back with lighter tones on top to highlight. And I don't want it to be as dark as my shadows, obviously, just because I won't be able to. I'll have to add too much highlight for it to be efficient. And then once I have done the base layer, I go in, like what I'm doing right now, I go in with a mid-tone, or more so several different mid-tones depending on what they should represent. So I'll add a deeper, more opaque, more saturated version of my base colour to add some relief to the actual skin itself, to make the skin not look as flat or homogeneous. Skin has loads of different colours in it, and so I need to kind of put different washes. It's a bit like the same process as watercolour. You need to add different colours together to make the skin look like it's really nice and organic, and it's got relief to it, and it's not just flat and cartoonish, if you see what I mean. So I'll add that kind of variation on my base colour, a more opaque, a darker version, to add some variation to the skin tone itself. And then I'll go in with this lavender colour that you see me using now, that I make that lavender by using purple blues and then mixing it to my base colour, and then it kind of gives me this kind of shadowy colour that I can use as a mid-tone for my shadows and for subtle shadow. So it'll be what I use in certain specific areas to make them look like they're slightly raised or bumped or things like that. And it's also that lavender colour that I'm going to be using to create wrinkles and veins, and kind of create this really subtle sketch of the wrinkles that I want to achieve, so that it's just like a line that I can reference and then go in darker. If I think that wrinkle is darker, I'll just keep adding some shadow to it, or I'll add a highlight to emphasize it, or things like that. So it's like lavender colour that I'm going to use for that, because those wrinkles are created by shadows. They're not actual lines that can be defined on the foot. You always see them only because of the shadow that they create. And then I go back in with some more shadows, and it's worth noting that most of the time, if I want my shadow to be a bit lighter, I'll always be mixing it with my base colour and not with white, just because it creates a uniform look to the feet and doesn't make it look patchy, if you see what I mean. It makes the colours blending nicely together and look like they belong. And then finally I'll add some warmth to all this. So I'll add some red in the parts that I want to look more translucent, again, like I said at the beginning, and things like that. So it adds some life. The red is really important in skin tones. It's difficult to not overdo it because we always think of skin as being pink, but it's a fine line to cross. So there's either too much red that's going to make someone look like they're sunburned, or there's going to be not enough red, which is going to make someone look like they're dead. Skin always has some red in it, always. It's finding that right balance that can be a bit difficult, and knowing where to put it. So yeah, you can see me going through that process again on this foot, and this one was the most difficult foot of the whole bunch, I think, just because feet have such a strange shape, and I had a lot of trouble drawing this one in the first place to make it look right. But also this particular foot had a strange lighting in the reference picture, and there's like a vein, like you can see I traced really harshly on there because it looked really harsh in the reference picture, but in reality it was quite delicate. It was just that the lighting was making it look really harsh, and so on my drawing it didn't work, and I just go back and forth, and I thought it looked a bit muddy after a while. I got really frustrated with this foot, but it was a good learning curve because it was all about what defines the shape of the foot. So instead of it, I made it look really harshly defined between the plane of the plant of the foot and the curve of the top of the foot, when in fact a foot is all curves, which is what makes it so difficult to draw. It's all defined by the shadows it projects, and it's not defined by lines at all. So it's difficult to decide where you're going to end your shadows so that it looks right. Anyway, I'm rambling on and on. I'm so sorry. It's worth me quickly noting how I did the veins on this foot. It's all about the shadow and the highlight rather than the line. So I don't make a straight line for the vein to appear as a line. I make a shadow, and then slightly over it I make a highlight, so it looks like there's a kind of raised bump going on along the foot, if that makes sense. I don't know, I love doing veins. They're so interesting and they make things look so realistic, but they can also be quite tricky. It's a bit like wrinkles. It's, again, like I said before, it's all about the shadow it creates and the light that reflects on it, and not about the line that you think it might be at first glance. So this, I think, was the pair of feet I was most happy with, because I decided to go really loose with that one. So if you notice on my other feet, I go quite smooth, and my paint job is kind of more I don't know how to say it. It kind of blends in, more blended, I suppose. It kind of, the colours flow into each other a lot more smoothly than I decided to do on these feet. So as you can see my brush strokes a lot more on this one. I decided to stop being so precious about how I blended my colours together, and I decided to go a bit more kind of vigorously and kind of patchy to see if it gave a different kind of aspect and a different kind of energy to the painting. I always I'm a bit of a control freak in a lot of things and I think my paint job is not spared that, and so I just feel like I need to control and make things look perfect and everything. And so part of why I decided to try gouache is because I want to become looser. I want to be able to let go of being so stiff in the way I paint. And so these feet, I tried to do that. And the good thing with the reference picture artists for that is that the feet were really wrinkled because they were the underneath of the feet. And I think the person either went swimming or something before they took the picture. So it was a great reference, and I couldn't go too smooth. It was just not this kind of pristine, lovely, smooth feet that you see in adverts. It was actual real feet, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was interesting to do that. To be a bit more vigorous with my paint job. One thing I haven't talked about yet is the highlights, and the fact that I go in I never really, unless I want the highlight to be very, very vigorous and stand out a lot, I never really go in with white. It's always a white that has some of the previous colours I've used mixed in, but because it's so much lighter than the colours mixed in, because there is white in them, then it stands out as being very white. But it will very rarely be just completely pure white. A bit like I said about black, you need to stay in the same kind of color palette when painting. I decide to stay in the same color palette because I think it makes everything blend together nicely, and it makes the painting look like one, even if everything in it was different components. It makes them blend together nicely, in my opinion. So that was the last fit I painted, and definitely not the one I was happiest with. It was, I think, probably one of the ones I was least happy with, because toes are difficult. And they looked a bit weird to me in that drawing, and even though they were pretty much what was in their reference picture, you don't really question a picture, whereas you question a drawing very quickly, even if it's your own and you think, oh, did I draw this right or not, even if it's exactly what's in the picture. So yeah, here we go. That was me painting Caucasian skin tones in gouache while drawing feet. I hope you guys understood when I was trying to explain things. This wasn't really a tutorial per se. I need to structure it better for it to become a tutorial, but I hope you guys still enjoyed me trying to explain how I paint skin tones, and I hope this was vaguely helpful to someone. So yeah, if you want to see more of my videos, you can check out this little guy that I painted. It's still in the skin tone range actually. Or you can join me on Instagram at Myriam Tillson. In any case, have a lovely day and I'll see you soon. Bye everyone.